What that is, that's going to be these trees right here. So these are the neem trees. Has anybody ever heard of neem oil before?
Yep.
Right? So neem oil is commonly used in organic gardening as a pesticide. What they would do is they're going to take the berries off this tree, turn it into a highly refined oil. You would take that oil, dilute it in water, spray it on your garden. It's going to help keep bugs off of them. And so these trees are endemic to India. In India, they would use the leaves as a tea. Say it's good for your liver, kidneys, things like that. And so here on the farm, we're not using these for any sort of insecticide, although I'm sure we are getting some integrated pest management just from having them here. We like these trees though because they are super fast growing and we can plant them close together. Now these are providing us with some great wind block, great canopy. And so a little frame of reference, guys, everything here on the farm is at most about 9.5 years old. So even these trees were just little nursery trees less than 10 years ago. Pretty amazing what we've been able to achieve, right? And so that's the neem tree. If we look over here, we're gonna see the Panax tree. Panax spelled P-A-N-A-X. Now that tree is endemic to South America. It's also known as the false coffee tree. So if you ever see a coffee tree, that leaf right there is gonna look pretty similar to coffee. So what we like about this tree, if you look down at the base there, you can see that nice thick trunk, and we can plant them super, super close together. Now these trees do not produce any lateral branches. They're just gonna grow straight up for the sky. We don't have to prune them to make them look like that. These trees are commonly used as fencing here in Hawaii. You'll see them all over the place, nice properties. And so here on the farm, we have 18 different blocks of cacao trees, 18 different big squares. We're kind of standing in the middle. They're gonna go all the way down to the highway, some that way, some that way. And now around every single square, we're gonna have these Panax trees. And also running in between each square, we'll have the Panax trees as well. And then we'll have those neem trees, of course, right here running through the middle, and then all along the perimeter of the property. Those are doing a great job at blocking those 70 to 80 mile per hour gusts that come through here. You guys can see, not too much wind today, but it'll be ripping up top there and almost nothing down here. Everything's doing its job. And so with that, we have any questions about these two trees?
So the cacao trees themselves
Yeah.
are going to grow to a certain height.
Yep.
Neem trees are going to grow to a certain height.
Yeah.
At a certain point, the gusts are going to cause problems for higher growing trees.
Right, right.
So that at some point you're going to be topping them to try and keep them, keep everything in the right.
Yep. So we're gonna have to prune these cacao trees back for sure. Most like any commercial fruit farm, right? They're gonna have to keep those trees in their barrier. We don't want them going too
And
crazy.
these neems, if they get too high, you don't want them being knocked over by.
True, right? From strong winds, things like that. Yep. So potentially we would have to start trimming these here in the next couple of years or something. And you know, at this point we do get some strong winds that come in, and it kind of prunes themselves in the sense that these branches break all the time. On high wind days, it makes a mess in here. We got to come clean it up. So it does kind of take care of itself in that sense.
Like the ones that are off the side.
Yep, we can see just right there, right? We had a big windstorm a week or two ago, a couple weeks now. Made a big mess in here.
Hey, yeah.
All right, guys, any more questions so far? Yeah.
These are cacao seedlings, or were they grafted, or where they come from?
Yep, so we started everything from seed originally. Now we're doing some grafting, things like that in the nursery. But yep.
Seeds originally were from where? Here?
Yeah, so different places in Ecuador. Dan flies all around the world consulting with different farms, right? So he's got his different little genetic places.
Are you able to breed?
Yep, we're doing a lot of breeding here. I'll actually talk a little bit about breeding here momentarily. Yeah. All right, any more questions about neem, Panax? Good deal. If you guys want to follow me right this way.
Come Jane, hold my hand.
You're in the shade.
Yeah.
Smart.
We can scoot in a little bit more. Yeah. So does everybody know what this plant is right here?
What do you think, Zane?
This is a banana tree, right? We call them banana trees. They're not actually trees. We call them banana trees, though. And so, has anybody tried apple bananas here in Hawaii yet? You guys can get out of the sun if you want a little bit. Scooch around here. We just want to make sure here in this cacao field, we just want to make sure we're not touching our cacao trees. We want to stay off the trees. Everything here is pretty delicate. All right. So, these are banana trees. Has anyone tried the apple bananas here in Hawaii?
Yeah.
Little tiny guys, right? If you haven't tried them, you have to try them. They're about the third of the size of a normal banana, 3 times as sweet, totally different flavor. They will make you change your mind to what a banana is supposed to taste like. And so these are apple bananas. Here on the farm though, we're not growing these for the fruit. We're growing them for these big waxy leaves right here. So these leaves have been used in cacao processing for hundreds of years. Cacao beans need to be fermented before they become chocolate. We'll talk a little bit more about fermentation shortly. But so basically what they would do in South America, where these trees are originally from, they're gonna take a big old pile of these fresh harvested beans, throw them right on the jungle floor. Then they would take these banana leaves, layer those on top, help keeping that heat and moisture during that fermentation. Now they're also gonna act as a bit of an inoculant. So if you guys had little microscope eyeballs, you could look all around here today and you would see wild yeast floating everywhere. Now those wild yeast strains really like to gather on these big leaves. So for that reason, they're gonna help get into that fermentation, help inoculate that a little bit. Any questions about banana trees? All right. So we're gonna circle around this cacao tree. And yeah, like I said, just try to stay mindful in here. Very delicate trees. We'll circle all the way around this guy. Let's make sure everybody can get in here and see this. So has anybody ever seen a cacao tree before? Where was that at?
Sri Lanka.
Places.
Yeah, okay.
Sri Lanka.
Some world travelers, sweet.
Ecuador, Peru.
So cacao is so Hawaii is the only place in the United States where cacao trees will grow. So pretty cool, we can check them out without a passport here today. And so cacao is a fruit. It's important to remember that cacao is a fruit. It's gonna make you feel better about having 9 pieces of chocolate for lunch today. They're just little smoothies, right? And so the first stage in any fruit production, this tree is gonna produce a flower. And now, what needs to happen to that flower to create fruit? What's step 1? Pollination, right? So these flowers are gonna need to be pollinated. Do we have any guess of what's gonna be doing the pollinating here on the farm?
Bees.
Human.
What was that? Yep. A lot of good guesses there. So yep, we're gonna have the non-biting midgefly, right? Non-biting midgefly is a relative to the no-see-um. If you ever heard of a no-see-um on the mainland, kind of pesky guys. He's like the mellow Hawaiian cousin to a no-see-um. So the non-biting midgefly, even the weight of a little honeybee, if he were to go up and land on that flower right there, we're gonna see these flowers all over the tree right here, these little guys. And so even the weight of a little honeybee, if he landed on that flower, he would rip that flower right off the tree. So what we're gonna have is that non-biting midgefly, super, super tiny guys, you can't even see them. Now these insects are endemic to Hawaii, which means they were here in the soil waiting for our cacao trees. Cacao trees need this specific insect. If we didn't have them, we'd be in trouble. So I like to use this as a reference. My friends work on a dragon fruit farm just down the road in Laniapoko. And now dragon fruit's natural pollinator is bats. However, we don't have bats in any kind of numbers here in Hawaii. So what they have to do on that farm at nighttime when those flowers bloom, they're gonna go out with a headlamp and a paintbrush and go to every single flower and hand pollinate them. So you can imagine we have 8,000 cacao trees here and only 2 full-time farm managers. If they had to come out and go into every single flower, we'd never get any chocolate, right? So luckily, we got the non-biting midgefly. He's gonna go up in that flower. He's gonna do his little pollination dance. And now we're gonna enter our first stage of maturation, which is gonna look a little something like this guy right here. Over here, just tiny, tiny little cacao pod right there. And so that first stage of maturation is gonna last about 3 to 5 months. Now in that time, that outer shell is gonna grow to full size, something like that, kind of like a Nerf football, right?
You mean like that big orange one?
Yeah, that thing's getting on its way for sure. So 3 to 5 months, we get that outer shell, and then we'll go into our secondary maturation phase, an additional 3 to 5 months in which the beans on the inside of that pod ripen. So there's about 35 to 50 cacao beans inside that pod. They're gonna ripen on that second half of that maturation. And so we're gonna have 2 big harvests in a year. We're gonna have a big spring harvest and a big fall harvest. However, we are in Maui, right? So we get beautiful growing conditions year round. We're gonna get to come in here every 3 or 4 weeks and do a little micro harvest. And you can see we're coming up on a micro harvest. We can see all kinds of colors in here, all kinds of rainbows. And so that's how we tell a cacao pod is ripe, by that color change. So this guy's gonna start red like that, start that deep maroon color, gonna ripen into that kind of orange Hawaiian sunset kind of color. You'll see all kinds of colors in here. And so we originally started from seed. There's 3 main varieties of cacao trees in the world. So you have Forastero, makes up about 80% of chocolate production worldwide. That's gonna be those green pods right there, those nice smooth green pods that turn into yellow. That's Forastero. Then we're gonna have Trinitario, originally from Trinidad, makes up about 10% of chocolate production worldwide. That's what we're looking at right here, this dark maroon variety. And then the rarest variety is gonna be Criollo, which is about 1 to 2% of chocolate production worldwide. We're gonna see that is, you can notice those bumpiness pods right there. See that? They kind of got all those warts on them. That's gonna be a Criollo mix. That looks like a mix of a Criollo and a Forastero.
Where are you pointing to that? The
See that
green
bumpy
one?
pod right there, that green one, the closest one?
Oh yeah, yeah.
All right. So that's gonna be a Criollo mix. So we have those 3 main varieties. Now we have done some crossbreeding, right? We've done all this work in the last 9 years or so. We've created 50 unique varieties to this farm. So these guys with all these degrees, all these smartness, right? They've created over 50 different unique varieties here in this field. So when we make our Maui piece of chocolate, we're not separating any of those varieties. We're just gonna put them all in one mixed bag, creating a super unique flavor. And so, oh yeah, I didn't even mention this. So once we get in, this tree's gonna produce about 100 cacao pods in a harvest, but it's only gonna bring about 20% of those pods to maturity. So what it's gonna do, it's gonna choose the 20 or so pods that it likes the best. It's gonna redirect that energy from those other 80 into those 20. Now what it does with those other 80, I will be right back. We're gonna wind up looking just like this. Just a shriveled up cacao pod. This is what we call a wilted Shirel or mummified pod. And now that's the tree's natural pruning cycle. When you think of something like an apple tree or an orange tree, they're gonna have to be pruned heavily every spring just to make sure that they have production. So this tree has evolved to prune itself. We love that. We don't have to prune them. We are gonna prune them on the foliar level, however. They would grow to about 50 feet tall if we let them. But make it easier for our farm managers, we're gonna prune down about 15 to 20. We don't have to bring ladders in here, anything like that. And so we're also gonna notice, we're gonna have some fruit coming out of the trunk of this tree. You guys have probably never seen an apple coming out of the trunk of a tree before. At least I hope not. So what this is, it's another evolutionary feat of the cacao tree. These pods, when ripe, are gonna be about 1 to 2 pounds each. So you can imagine a 2-pound pod hanging off that new growth up there. It would bend over, it would break. That tree would never be able to sustain it. So these trees have evolved to grow that fruit down on the weight-bearing parts of the tree. Now we're gonna look over here, we're gonna see our irrigation system down here at my feet. Each tree is gonna get their own emitter, that blue guy right there. It's gonna spray about a 3-foot cone out here. Those mushrooms right behind you. Those just popped up today, that's pretty cool. And so each tree is gonna have their own emitter, about a 3-foot cone around the side. We're gonna do that watering at nighttime so we're not losing any to the sun. And now these lines are tied into that same water infrastructure left behind by the sugarcane companies. They didn't take any of those pipes out of the ground, right? They didn't clean up after themselves. However, we are using that water a lot more responsibly. So they were watering 1,200 acres in this field. We have a 60-acre lease. 20 acres are currently planted and only 10 acres are actual cacao production. So we're not taking that water from anybody that needs it. A lot more responsible. So what this allows us to do, it allows us to control the water. Now these trees are endemic to the Amazon River Basin. They're traditionally grown in places with over 100 inches of rain per year. Nobody that we've been able to find is growing commercial cacao in a desert like this. Why try to grow it in the desert, pay for water when you can grow it in the jungle for next to free? What this allows us to do though, we're controlling that water. We're gonna choose to underwater these trees. So what this does, similar to the wine industry, when you get a drought year with wine, you get a better wine, right? You grow hot peppers at home, you underwater those peppers, you get a hotter pepper. So this is gonna bring out more complex flavors in our cacao bean. It's inducing a low level of stress on them. That stress causes that tree to push a little more flavor. So this tree grown in this environment would taste entirely different than if you grew it with full water. So when we taste our Maui piece, that's gonna be one of the contributing factors to that super unique flavor. So with that, do we have any questions about cacao trees, pods, life cycle, anything like that? I did miss something. I just realized they're gonna live to about 100 years if we let them. They would stop producing fruit after about 40 or 50 years.
No, you. What happens with the cast off?
These guys, they just fall off, no worries. They become organic material in the ground. Yep.
Fertilizer.
Yep.
Since some of the seeds came from Ecuador, are these Nacional as well?
We do not have any Nacional here.
don't?
We are going to
Okay.
taste some Nacional today, though. We have a sister farm in Ecuador, in Costa Esmeralda. Yep. We're definitely going to get some Nacional. Good stuff.
The self-pruning,
Yeah.
would there be any benefit to pruning them a little heavier on an individual basis to redirect even more?
I don't think
Production
necessarily.
into the pods?
They've kind of had a lot of time to figure out their maximum production. Right? They've been thinking about this for thousands of years, so I think they got it for us. Yeah. Any other questions, guys?
Do they get any insects?
Yes, we do have something right now. You can see some chewing on the leaves right now. See those little holes in there? That's going to be a rose beetle. Now, we're not really have a problem with this rose beetle. They're just trying to they're taking some of that under foliage. They're not really affecting our crop, so we're going to let them have a snack. No worries. And then for the pod itself, that outer shell is super hard, right? Kind of like a pumpkin or a gourd. So mice can't really get in there. Birds have a hard time getting in there. So for that reason, we're pretty good on pests down here. Yep.
Are the leaves that are red, is that because they're the newer leaves
The
and
new
then they
growth,
change
yeah.
it?
So mango trees do that new thing. Typically when you think of new growth, it's a light green. Mango trees, cacao trees, some other trees, their new growth is going to be that red. Yeah.
smaller pods or pods that aren't fully matured
Yep.
contain some segment of bean that's underdeveloped.
Yeah, no, so it's just going to be that outer shell. The
Oh,
bean
okay.
doesn't start developing until that secondary maturation phase.
Okay, so a certain size. So,
Yep,
so
yep.
something in this size range.
Yep, so now those beans in there are starting to ripen, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. Any other questions, guys? All right. Yeah, what's up, buddy? You got a question?
So